I'd say one of the biggest things that he's taught me, which I think helps me a lot, is to understand how goals in life work.
I just had the most interesting conversation with Andrew Griffenstein. Andrew talked about his father and how inspired he is by the leadership and the character that his father's taught him, and how he's bringing those traits into his role as a young leader at CNG. I think you'll enjoy hearing from Andrew Griffenstein. Today, I'm spending time with Andrew Griffenstein. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you today. So tell us a little bit about what is it you do at CNG?
I am a lead operator for the Ontario plant on A shift.
Awesome. And so how long have you been doing that?
I have been a lead operator for about 3 months now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you progressed quickly in the company?
Yes,
Awesome.
I have worked all the way from the start at Op 1 all the way here to lead operator.
Over a 2-year period?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Good for you. So you're applying a lot of our values of being curious, and what else? Like, how would you describe your style?
Definitely, I would definitely say I go after opportunities,
Yeah?
and there's certainly a lot of them here.
Yep.
Because when I started, I remember saying to them that this seems. I looked at this job and knew that this was a place I could go. I could go places,
Yeah.
and the opportunities certainly at Ontario were, there was a lot of opportunities. It was brand new building, brand new.
Field of dreams.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
was probably we had 4 people at the time, and
Yep.
I was brand new. I was still in college at the time, but
Mhm.
graduated about 8 months in, and phew, it was quite a journey
Yeah.
starting out and doing all the training that I did. And I've worked in just about every building except for here in Films 4, and it was a long road to get here, and it was a road that I'm glad I traveled.
Yeah, I am too. You're an inspiration to others, in how you've been able to go after opportunities and grow, Andrew. So I want to learn a little bit more about you as a person outside of work. So tell me a bit about how you grew up, a bit about your family and kind of what your early years were like.
Well, let's see. I was born in Bluffton, Ohio. It's this tiny, tiny little village just outside of Lima. And I lived at the time with my mother, my aunt, a bunch of college kids, and I believe maybe my other aunt. It was a big household at the time. My parents were not married yet. And we lived in Bluffton for a little while. And finally, my parents got married when I was 3.
Mhm.
And we moved to we lived in a camper behind my grandmother's house while our house was being built here in Ontario. We lived in Crestline for about a year, and then finally we moved to Ontario in 2003,
Mhm.
where I've actually lived for the rest of my life so
Mhm.
far. And I went to school in Ontario all years, up from kindergarten all the way to high school. And then I went to Eastern Gateway Community College down in Steubenville, and I started working at charter here in about 2021 June.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'd say I remember when I was a kid, everybody was I was a jumpy little kid. I was definitely the kind of stereotypical, very hyper, always moving around, always jumping around kind of kid. I always had things to talk about. I was always talking. I was always talking to everybody. I was always jumping around, having a good time, and
So you had
that's
a happy time.
oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And I have
It, Go ahead.
I have 3 siblings. I have 3 younger brothers. So growing up in that environment was quite hectic, but I always appreciated my parents who always were there for us even when things were very, very difficult. They pulled through, and there was some tough times, but they always worked hard, they always worked hard through it, especially my father. My father is a very big inspiration for me.
Yeah, I was
He
going to ask you like who was an inspiration and why. So tell me about your father.
My father is a police officer. He's the police captain for Ontario Police, and he's the kind of person that doesn't when he sees something that's wrong, he has to fix it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he does is whenever he sees an opportunity to do something, make something better, or just do something that nobody really thought to do, it was he took it upon himself. He was like, "I'm gonna make this my responsibility, and I'm gonna do it." And he's probably one of the highest decorated officers in Ontario, and he's definitely made a huge impact on the community and things like that. He's brought through, oh man, so many things. He works hard all the time, always makes sure that people are where they need to go, having them engage with the community, getting things together so that the community can engage with them, setting up programs to help
Mhm.
officers, especially ones with mental illnesses from the job. And just he's done so many things. He's gotten so many awards from things like successful hostage negotiations, and
Wow.
he took up the he just takes anything that he has the opportunity to take responsibility of, he takes. So
Yeah.
he travels around the country when he has to do meetings with higher officials. He'll do um, he did security detail for, I believe it wasn't the Israeli vice ministers. I think the person just below him wanted to come to visit the newly opened synagogue in our town, and my
Mhm.
father did worked with the Israeli, uh, what are
Mhm.
they, Secret Service, I guess, to help get them there, and it was very successful. So my father's often a very trusted individual. He's always been trusting.
Yeah.
He's always had a thing against. He really hates corruption, and he's always been a very. I'd say he's probably got a pretty solid golden moral code.
Yeah, they say character is revealed when you take action that nobody sees, like what you do, like what are you inspired to do when nobody knows you're doing it? Sounds like your dad is that guy who's always gonna pick the right thing to do. Like
Absolutely.
he's always gonna flip heads up, right?
My father, one of the interesting things that was always interesting, he said whenever you're in a crowd of people and there's something going on, it kind of dilutes the responsibility.
Yeah.
He said if you're in a big crowd of people and someone's having a heart attack, don't hesitate. Be the person that's going to go up there, call 911 and try to help the person.
Yeah.
That's how my father's always been.
So is there like when you think about your dad and kind of the biggest lesson that you learned from him or something from your childhood that you'll always remember, is there one particular story for how he impacted you?
Yes. I'd say one of the biggest things that he's taught me, which I think helps me a lot, is to understand how goals in life work.
Mhm.
A lot of people are told to set a goal in life.
Yeah.
And the problem is I think some people when they reach that goal, it's then they don't have anything to do. They
Mhm.
become kind of aimless. They don't quite sure what to do because you might have spent months or years of your life achieving this goal. And now that you're here, it's some people they get there and they're like, I'm glad I did this. But then some people, the journey meant more than the
Yeah.
than the destination. But now that they've reached it, it's they don't not sure what to do. My father has always told me, he said, you have to think of every goal as like a ladder. Like
Ah.
he uses like a literal ladder. And he says, you start at the bottom.
Yeah.
You to get to this goal, you have to do this. Next
Mhm.
rung, do this, do this,
Mhm.
do this. And he said, but when you're done, when you reach the top of the ladder, take the ladder and flip it and start at the bottom
Yeah.
again. Find a new goal
Yeah.
and move from here to here to here. Break it down so, if it's a big goal, it doesn't overwhelm you, but break down each goal into a series of smaller goals that you can eventually achieve. And then
Mhm.
when you reach that goal, flip the ladder over
Yeah.
and start again.
Yeah, that is great advice. Really good because if you just set one big goal for life and once you achieve it, then what? Right? And but there's so much more to life than the next goal. So when you think about your life and kind of goals that you have for yourself, what would be a few of those?
One of my biggest goals in life, I well, that was the interesting about goals is sometimes you don't even know what your goal is until
That's
you
true.
till you come across a good opportunity, and
Mhm.
that was one of the things I found because I was thinking my life goal was well, it's I'd say it's pretty standard for most people. It's like I want to own a home.
Yep.
I want to buy my dream car. 'Cause I'm young, but
Mhm.
uh, and I wanted to have a good career,
Mhm.
good job.
Yep.
And when I came to charter, I was thinking, where's my goal? What is my goal? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I saw it. It's staring at me right in the face. I looked at the Um, I don't think we have any more. We had a chart that showed where everybody was kinda oh, it was on ADP. It showed you
Mhm.
where everybody was, like, supervisor down to op 1. I was like, "I wanna be here. This is where I wanna be because as, like, the machine operator, that's fine,
Yeah.
but I wanna keep going. Like, I
Yep.
don't wanna stop here. There's people we get, they're fine where they
Mhm.
are, but I wanted to go higher.
Yep.
So I wanted to get to lead operator. I wanna do all the technical stuff. That's what I really love doing because I like working with people, I like working with the machines, I love doing that, and that's where I set my goal. So that was the top of the ladder,
Yep.
and
Now you gotta flip it.
right, one of the great things about working where I do is the ability to develop myself as a leader,
Mhm.
which I always wanted to do because
Yeah.
that's how my father is.
Yep.
He's a great leader, and I wanted to be like him
Yeah.
and have a positive impact on the people around me and hopefully have a good impact on the company as well, especially our shift as well, because we've had a lot of good people who've moved on to different shifts, maybe another building, and I want to continue that legacy of all these great people we've had.
Mhm.
So, learning to teach people, learning to remain calm under pressure and manage stress, and people feed off that. And that
They
was
do.
the rung to the next goal that I had, which was how do you lead people? You know, and show people, especially in stressful situations, how to teach people this
Yeah.
is what we do.
Well, I think one of the things about being a leader, and I can see it in you, Andrew, is just being authentic, being who you are, and
Mm,
really bringing out the strengths that you have. So
thank you.
it's really great to see the ambition that you have and how much you're willing to apply yourself. So when you're not working, when you and I know you've invested a lot of time to develop yourself both inside and outside of work. But what are your hobbies? What do you like to do to have fun?
I do a lot of things. I'd say probably the biggest things I do, especially in the summers, I love to do stuff with my friends outside, especially.
Uh
I
huh.
just went on a canoeing trip with my friend, and
To
that
where?
we did Mohican. That's what it was. We did the
Mm-hmm.
big 7 mile canoeing trip. It was a lot of work,
How
but it
long
was
does
just
that
fun.
take?
It took us about 3 hours. It was just constant, like
Yeah.
rowing, getting through the
Yeah.
rapids
Yeah.
and all that. I love doing that stuff. I love doing outdoor stuff. I love going on, that's one of the nice things about having 4 days off with working here is that
Yeah.
I can go travel somewhere and go
It's cool.
hike, and I've been so many places. I went out west last year to hike around what were they called? The mountains out there near South Dakota, I forget. Black Hills,
Black Hills.
and I loved hiking around there. I love doing outdoor stuff,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it involves hiking, fishing, or
Yeah.
any kind of outdoor activity. I love to explore. I love to get
What's
out
the
there.
next place you'd like to explore? Like if you could go anywhere in the world, what would it be?
Oh goodness, there's so many. It would hard to say. I would love to go to Europe.
Yeah.
I would love to
Okay.
go and just see all the cities and the beautiful countryside. I'd love to go to Switzerland, see the Swiss Alps. They're just so beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that would
Yeah.
be a dream destination for me.
Awesome. Is there anyone either alive today or in the past that if you had the opportunity to meet, to sit down and have a conversation with, who would it be?
That's a great question. I've actually thought about this question a lot because it was
Yeah?
always a changing person. Because it's crazy to think of talk to any person.
Anyone,
Phew.
anyone you could have a dinner conversation with them, or you could just meet them, go hiking with them,
Yeah, it
whatever you want to do.
it's
Yeah.
let's
We're dreaming here.
if we're thinking about people, I would probably say probably George Washington. Like
Wow. Okay.
someone who is just it's like I one of my other passions is history, like especially outside of work.
Okay.
I love studying
Okay.
history. He's such a different person than the average person in history in which, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
There's not like a perfect human in history. It's we're all, we all have issues. But I mean, there's rarely been someone in history who has been offered everything in terms of something you don't really want someone to have, like all this power and all that.
Yeah.
And he says no. And if you actually read what he did after everything that happened, like after the revolution and all that,
Mhm.
it's probably one of the most inspiring acts of leadership ever in probably humanity. Like
Mhm.
the amount of time he put into other people, the amount of just he dedicated his whole life into setting up everything. And that's amazing. Like, there's been very, very few people ever
Mhm.
who could have done that, and I would just love to ask him, it's like, "How did you end up like this?" Like,
Yeah.
how could you basically, everybody's begging for you to just take over everything, it's like, how do you have the humility to just say no? How do you just what made you who you are? What do you think of what's happened? Like, what do everything that we've built, what would you think of it? And that's something I would love to talk about.
Yeah, that's a really insightful answer. So What do you think? Like, how do you think someone, I mean, obviously your dad is someone with strong moral character, George Washington. What do you think that differentiator is? Like, what do you think makes someone into a selfless, kind of humble leader?
I think it starts with a very hard, no, I wouldn't say hard nosed, but perhaps a very disciplined attitude.
Mhm.
A person who doesn't give in quite easily to things that are presented to you like negatively. They don't give in to vices quite as easily as
Mhm.
the average person. My father started out his first job, he was 8 years old and he sat in a dark barn with a little light and pulled nails out of a board
Mhm.
for like a few hours.
Yeah.
That was his first job. Well, I mean, remember his first like actual employment job, he worked on
Mhm.
a dairy farm where he
Mhm.
would have to sit in the back of a truck and tackle cows so that they could
Tackle?
tackle cows. You'd have to drive up next to him and leap out of the back of of a truck and tackle the cow to the ground so you could give it its shots and also tag
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And then you'd have the other cows try to defend it, and they come try to knock you off, and it's just crazy, and
Okay.
that was his first job, and it was long, long hours in the sun with other people, sweating. My father's always worked.
Yeah.
He's a person who doesn't like not working. He is the most anti-lazy person I've ever seen.
Yeah, I can tell that you've inherited that trait.
Really?
Yes, yes, I can tell because, you're so passionate about what you do and growing and, wanting to climb the ladder and then turn it over and climb it again. I mean, I can tell that you're a very ambitious person and very focused on developing your leadership skills, and
Mhm.
it's really exciting, I
Yeah.
think, to see someone like you, so young in your career, with your whole career ahead of you, so focused on wanting to
Uh,
be a leader.
yeah.
All right. Well, we've come to this point in the interview when it's time to flip the table here, flip the microphone, so to speak. And you can ask me any question you want to ask me.
Okay. Um, so what got you interested? Have you always worked for charter, or did you come from somewhere else? And if you did, what made you interested in charter?
Wow. Yes, I've always worked in manufacturing my entire career. So I was a trailblazer in that way because I was the only woman to do what I was doing
Like,
for every job I had. Actually, every job I have ever had, I was the first woman, only woman to do it. But I came up through the manufacturing channel, like working as a plant supervisor, as a quality engineer, as a materials planner. I was a plant manager and kind of kept climbing the ladder.
wow.
And I have been with this company since 2006. So starting first working for a company called Appleton Paper, and then they sold the division off to private equity in 2010, and that's when I became the CEO. So I've been the CEO since 2010, and obviously we've grown considerably over the 13 years. When I first became CEO, our sales were about 50 million, and now they're over 1.5 billion.
That's insane. I remember looking at the numbers when I just before I got hired, I wanted to learn a lot about this company first and
Hmm.
came in and it said fastest growing company in the Midwest. I was like,
Yeah,
really? It was like in
yeah,
manufacturing? And they're like, no, period. Like fastest growing, period.
yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And then I,
Wow.
I looked at that trend. I was like, oh my God. Like
Yeah.
what's going on here? It's like,
Right. Yeah, and now we're all owners together, right?
uh,
We have the opportunity to share in the value that we create, so that's really exciting.
oh yeah. I love that too about making everybody an owner because you'd think in a factory job, you'd think you just get stuck somewhere and nobody cares. But this is so different. It's like, I love getting we even have brand new employees that and since I'm on the engagement committee, I can ask them, I said, "Do you have any ideas about
Mhm.
anything that could be done, make things better?" And they have great ideas. And I think the fact that we care enough about that, I think is quite monumental. I
Yeah,
find that to be quite like people look for great companies. It's like, this is good. I love it.
awesome. You inspire me.
Really? You inspire me too.
Thank you.
Like hearing so much about just you like that kind of attitude. You said I was the only woman doing this. It's like
Yeah,
I see so many people today who just kind of like hold back and they think I can't do it.
yeah.
It's like that's incredible.
Well, the more you do, the more you realize you can do, and it sounds like you already understand that with your ladder analogy, but that's life. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's where the growth is.
Who inspired you? to do all this? Like, who would say yours biggest inspirations are?
I would say my mom, in that I'm living the life she didn't get to live, right? Because back then, I mean, she was born in 1921, my mom, from a family of 10 kids, and she had me when she was 40. So there were very limited opportunities for women back then. So I wanted to live a life that women before me couldn't live.
I'd say you definitely succeeded.
Thank you.